Alright, hi everyone. Let's continue with our data structures and algorithm series. In our previous videos, we implemented few common methods that can be performed on singly linked list like get method, pop method, push method, etc. And today we are going to implement the reverse method. In simple terms, we will see how we can reverse a given singly linked list. For example, you can see the original singly linked list here that has the head node as 10, which is pointing to 5, then 7, then 9, and to the last node that has value 4, which is our tail node also, right? Now after reversing it, the tail node will become the head node, which will point to 9, 7, 5, and the original head node will now become the tail node. Nothing new. You must have seen something similar with the strings and arrays. You must have seen questions like reverse the given string or reverse the given array. Same thing we will be doing with the linked list. Also, before moving on to the implementation, one more thing, we are not going to create a new linked list to reverse the given linked list. We will be doing it in the same place. No need to create another linked list for that. Alright, now let's look at the pseudocode for the reverse method. So the first step will be is to create a variable called node that will point to the head of this linked list. After that, we will swap head node with the tail node. So before swapping, the linked list will look something like this, where node 10 is the head node and node 4 is the tail node. And after swapping, node 10 will be the tail and node 4 will be the head. One more thing, this node will not always point to the head. This variable node will point to the current node of the linked list. By current node, I mean if we are working with this node, then this is our current node. And when we are working with this node, then this will be our current node. And that's how node variable will be pointing to all the nodes of this linked list one by one. Simple, right? So the first step is swapping the head node and tail node and initialize our node variable. Alright, then the next step is to create two more variables. First one is previous and the second one is next, and we will initialize both of these variables with null. Now if you are thinking why we need previous and next variable, you will see the usage of it in the next step. After this, we will start a for loop where this loop will run for the n number of times, where n is the length of linked list. If let's say your linked list is of 5 nodes, then the for loop will run for 5 times. And inside our for loop, our first step will be is to assign the value of node.next to the next variable. Now if you are thinking what is node.next here, if you remember, we created the variable node in our first step, right, which was pointing to the head, which means that was pointing to this node 10, and node.next property will point to node 5. So node.next is 5 here, you can see, right? And we have to assign this value to the next variable. After that, your next variable will look something like this, next is equals to 5. Now this process might be confusing, but try to understand it. Now we have to assign the value of previous variable to the node.next, and since we initialize our previous variable with null, the node.next will be null here. Now here is your first progress. Remember, the value of node was 10, right? And now node.next is pointing to null here, which means the head node is now successfully declared as tail here, because it's the tail node in linked list that always points to null, and 10 here is pointing to null now, right? Moving on to the third step. Now assign node to the previous variable. The old value of previous variable is null and the value of node is 10. And after assigning, previous variable is equals to 10 here. These red highlights are the outputs of all the assignments we are doing here. And the last step is now assign next variable to the node variable. And if you check the first step here, the value of next is 5, which means the node 5. And after this, the node will be updated and our current node will be 5 now. Remember, node is going to point all the linked list items one by one based on our iteration. First it was pointing to this node 10, and after first iteration it is now pointing to node 5. After first iteration, you can say node 10 is successfully reversed. Now it's time to reverse the node 5. You can see here 10 is pointing to null. We got our tail now. Now it's the turn of node 5. So that you can understand it properly, we will see the second iteration of the loop. We are just repeating the same steps again for the second node. The node variable was pointing to node 5, and our first step is assign node.next to the next variable. Now can you guess the node.next value here? As we know, node is 5, right? Which means node.next is pointing to node 7. So here you can see node is 5, node.next is 7, and once we assign node.next to the next variable, this is our output. Next will be node 7. Second step, now assign previous variable to the node.next. Now if you see our previous iteration, the value of previous was node 10 here, where node 10 is pointing to null. Now assign previous to the node.next, and you can see after assigning previous variable to the node.next, this is our second progress of reversing the linked list. 5 is pointing to 10 and 10 is pointing to null. You can see the original linked list here. The reversed output is sort of same, right? 5 is pointing to 10 and 10 is the tail node, which means it is pointing to null. So this is our second progress, which means we have successfully reversed 2 nodes of our linked list. Cool. It might be sounding confusing, but don't worry, we will see the implementation and it will be clear. The third step, now assign node to the previous variable. So the value of previous variable is 10 here, but we have to now assign the value of variable node to the variable previous, and node variable is pointing to node 5, which means now previous variable will point to the node 5, and in the next step we will assign the value of next variable to the node variable, so that the current node changes from 5 to 7 now. I hope this all makes sense to you. In the second iteration, we successfully reversed the 2 node, and if we keep on repeating this for all the nodes in the given singly linked list, then the final output will be this, which is the reversed singly linked list, and in the end we will simply return the reversed singly linked list. Alright, if this one sounds confusing to you, I will highly recommend you to go through this again, and if you still have any doubt, you can ask in the comments. Alright, now let's move on to the code sandbox and try to implement this. Alright, so this is our singly linked list code which we implemented in our previous videos. Now let's create another method called reverse. Now let's check our pseudocode. We need to create a node variable and swap the head and tail node. Let's implement step 1. Alright, this is the simplest way to swap the head with tail node, and also we have created our node variable. Step 2, we need to create 2 more variables, previous and next. Now we need to loop through the linked list. I am utilizing this .length here. Now next step is assign node.next to next variable, and then we need to assign the value of previous variable to node.next. After that, assign node to the previous variable, and the last step is assign the value of next variable to node. And in the end, we just need to return the singly linked list. So we can simply write return this. Alright, now let's try to run this. Also, we already have a singly linked list created here that looks something like node 1 is pointing to node 2, node 2 is pointing to node 9, and node 9 is pointing to node 10. Now I will call here console.log list.reverse. Now this should reverse our given singly linked list, and the output should look something like this. 10 will be pointing to 9, 9 will be pointing to 2, and 2 will be pointing to 1, and 1 will point to null. Now let's open the console and see the output. Cool. Let's expand this one. So now you can see our head is now pointing to node 10. Node 10 is pointing to node 9. So far it looks good. Node 9 is pointing to node 2, and node 2 is pointing to node 1, and node 1 is pointing to null. Great. So our reverse method is working as expected. This step might be confusing, but you can go through the pseudocode again and again. If you still have any doubt, you can ask in the comments. That's all for this one, and thanks for watching.